Hello, welcome back to On the Daily. I am your host, Danielle, and on today's episode, I am talking about the definition of time freedom because this is something this is something that I used to think meant something so much different than it actually means. And I think there's a lot of people that are chasing a false idea of what time freedom really is. So we're going to talk about that and a little bit about money mindset as well. I think we'll wrap it in. It'll be wrapped in. We'll do a little business wrap in with multiple topics, but for the most part, we are talking about time freedom and what that actually means. And you know, if you're in a business and what is offered is time freedom, or what you think you're building is time freedom, have a listen to this episode and maybe I'll change your mind a little bit. As a reminder, my Human Design for Business course, Intuition, Authority, Power, is beginning on July 1st. And that program is a little over a month long. And it is all about learning how to implement and integrate human design into your business. So if you are an entrepreneur or if you're an employee, if you're a manager, if you hire people, it really doesn't matter what your business is. Human design can be really, really beneficial and really helpful when you implement it into your daily procedures and the way you make decisions and the way you hire and the way that you build a team and how you prioritize certain things. Human design can kind of help with all of that. And it's the second time I've ran this course, and it literally is one of the best courses I have. And it's always so popular, and everyone always walks away just feeling so transformed. But also, it feels good to feel good about your choices. And we live in a world that will kind of teach you to do things one way. And if your natural state of being is saying that's not how I operate, then we're almost made to feel guilty about that. So it feels really good when you start building a business in an aligned way that actually feels like peace and your central nervous system is calm. And that is what I teach in this course. And that is why it is so popular. So if you want more information on that, you can click the link in our show notes, or you can come to my Instagram at Danielle_on the daily. You can click the link in our bio to access it as well. And obviously I'm always in the DMs for questions. So come on in. Time freedom. This is something that I used to think I was building. And when I was building when I first dipped my toes into entrepreneurship, I was preaching that I had time freedom. And in my mind, what that meant was I don't have a boss. I don't have an office. I kind of get to do what I want. I get to kind of, work when I want, fit it in to my life in the way that it makes sense. And that's what I thought time freedom was. And I was constantly on my phone. I was glued to a computer on calls. I offered free sales calls all the time. I handled customer support. I was so in my business, and it was just this constant state of hustle and grind and hustle and grind and hustle and grind, to the point where I remember we had moved into what was the biggest house we had lived in at that time. I drove a nice car. We traveled all the time. And still, I sat down with my wife and, then my fiance, and our son, and we would sit down on the couch at night to watch TV or do whatever we were doing. And I would just be overcome with the most anxiety and the feeling of the other shoe will fall if I don't keep hustling. So there was this constant, just nagging feeling of, you better work harder, you better work harder, you better do more, you better, get to that next level, you better earn that thing, you better promote, as quickly as you can. And it was just this constant state of heightened central nervous system. And it always felt like it was a race. And about a year after my dad died, my dad was the same way. My dad hustled a lot, and he always used to say things like, oh, well, I'll sleep when I'm dead, or, I'll work like this until I retire. And he never got to retirement. He died at 64. So I spent that first year after he died very much just trucking along, like just keep swimming. I felt like Dory from Finding Nemo, where I was just like, just keep moving, just keep moving. And I didn't allow myself in that first year to really stop and actually like process what was happening in the body, which ultimately led to the most epic burnout I'd ever experienced, because it's not sustainable to live like that. It's just not. And it didn't feel good. It never felt good. But that's what I believed at the time was the definition of time freedom and success and worthiness and all the things. And when I was working like that, it was just perpetuating this belief that I had around my worthiness, which was very deeply tied to outside praise and validation. So while I'm hustling till my eyes turn red and like moving at the speed of light through a comp plan, I am being praised for it. People are telling me how amazing I am, how incredible it is to see somebody work like this. And so that was like fucking with me so bad, because I was like, wow, I'm exhausted and I have so much anxiety, and I'm always worried that the other shoe is going to fall, and I'm so afraid to take a break, and I can't take a break. I mean, even when I remember we went to Italy, and it was like my dad's last international trip before he died. And I spent a lot of that trip working. Like I was on my phone a lot of that trip working, and I was so afraid. I remember just feeling so much fear around taking a break. And so about a year after my dad died, I literally woke up one day and I just had this moment where I remember looking over at Breezy, and I was like, if this is freedom, I don't want it. I'm not interested. And that was a turning point. That was a big turning point, because on paper, I was successful. I made like $200,000 that year. That was a lot of money to me. And I was ready to literally burn it to the fucking ground. Like full stop, burn it to the ground. I don't want it. This was about the time I really decided to go on a spiritual quest of a sorts. And in that spiritual quest, I found metaphysics. I discovered the law of attraction. I discovered wealth energetics. I discovered human design. And I talk about human design all the time. If you're not new to the podcast, you know how deeply I align with human design. And that's why I teach human design. That's why it's a huge leg of my business. And I found human design. And what I learned through human design is that I am on this planet for a purpose. And my purpose is to help as many people as I can live their best life and lead themselves epically. I do that by prioritizing joy, by prioritizing my peace, and by keeping my central nervous system calm. Well, that sent me on a tailspin, because this shook every belief that I had for the last couple of years. And I went through kind of like, I don't know if it was like a depression or if it was just this dip where I realized I have attached my identity so tightly to this one idea of freedom and success. And who am I if I just go and turn that on its head? And if you were watching my Instagram at that time, you would have had no idea, because I was very good at just moving through things. Internally, there was a lot of identity crisis happening. I was feeling very lost. I was feeling very confused. I was feeling like a fraud. Obviously, none of those things were true, right? None of those things were true. And the ego is a really crazy thing, because it'll make you believe things that are not true. And still, that's how I felt. And when you feel like that, if you've ever felt like that, when you feel like that, you know that it is a dark place to be. It does not sit well. So it took a little while for me to come out of that. But what I've realized now, after building a business so successfully, I remember when I used to just like have this idea that $20,000 a month was going to change my life. It was going to serve everything. And then I hit that and it didn't change a damn thing. And in fact, I just got more stressed and I had more anxiety. And because I hadn't changed my identity, I hadn't actually sat down and been like, well, what's your life context, D? Like, actually, what do you want to do? Do you want to build a business where it's completely determined, like it is completely dependent on whether or not you're present? Do you really want to build a business where you're on calls all the time? Do you really want to build a business where the people that you surround yourself with in business need everything from you because you don't stand in your own power? Is that really the type of business you want to build? And the answer was absolutely not. That was not the business I wanted to build. I have a life context of true freedom. Freedom is my priority, and it is completely centered around my wife and my son. And everything I do does this get me closer or farther away to complete freedom for me, my wife, and my son? And I heard Gary Vee do an interview about this a couple of days ago. Maybe it was yesterday. I don't even remember anymore, but it was a few days ago. And he was talking about how selfishly his outside goal was that he wants to buy the New York Jets, but his internal, that was the outside goal. But really what that meant was he was going to prove that you can literally come from nothing and not even be able to afford a New York Jets jersey and have your mom knit you one because you were so broke that you guys couldn't afford one, to literally buying the whole fucking team. And that struck me because it's so true. Like I'm going to be a billionaire. I'm going to own a plane. I'm going to have property all over the world. Like, I know all these things to be true. But it's not, I don't want those things just because. I want those things because it means freedom. Because if I don't have to say no because of money, because if I don't have to say no to somebody else's agenda, because if I don't have to look to politicians and world leaders to save me, that's freedom. And I'm going to build a business and a brand and a life around that, no matter what. And so for me, time freedom or freedom is really building something around your life context. It's having boundaries and sticking to them and not breaking your own boundaries. It's prioritizing your peace and a calm central nervous system. In my own business, it's having a scalable product suite that can make the most money passively. It's not having the success of my business to be dependent on whether or not I am physically in the building. It's multiple streams of income. It's joy. It's not having to say no because of money or anyone else. That's real freedom for me. It's when my assets can pay for my life. That's freedom to me. And the way that I was preaching before and the way that I was building before that's not what it was supporting. And so just there's something I really want you to hear. And it's if you're building something, a business, brand, whatever, and it is consuming you, that's not freedom. And it is possible to build something that leads to true freedom. It is. You just have to ask yourself what freedom actually means to you. Because freedom for me is like nobody drives my car, right? Like there's so many things out there that'll tell you that something is a vehicle for something. This is a vehicle for something. And if I don't get to drive my own vehicle, then that's not freedom. So that is something that I really share. And that's the biggest reason why I built programs like Intuition, Authority, Power, which is my human design for business course. Because once I realized that I could build a business in a different way and have it give me more joy, more peace, more freedom, and way more money. I laugh at the fact that I thought, $200,000 is a lot of money. And That's not even close now. So it's actually possible to become more successful when you prioritize your life context and when you truly define what freedom looks like for you. And my definition of freedom is different than other people's definition of freedom. I know that. That's okay. That's the beauty of the world. But if this resonates with you, then intuition, authority, power is probably the right course for you to take. And diving into your human design is probably a really good option for you. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this resonates. And if it does, make sure you share it. Tag me. I would love to see how it resonates with you. And remember, you can always get a discount on any of my programs. If you go to Apple Podcasts and you leave a review and a 5-star rating and write a review and screenshot it, send it to my team at hey@daniellemcclary.com. We'll give you a discount off of any masterclass, group program, mastermind, private mentorship, whatever it is. So always an option. I thank you so much for listening to this episode, and we'll be back on Friday with another one. Love ya.